Nice. Okay, so today, Adam, I wanted to talk about sentence planning, particularly in relation to question 5. Can you see my PowerPoint? Can you see it all right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the thing that I want you to think about is the phrase "write less, craft more." The mark scheme for this paper, um, in the highest band that you can have. Let me see if I'll pull up the mark scheme for you in a second. The mark scheme talks about crafting in question 5. The highest sort of elements to the question talks about crafting. If I just show you, let me know. Can you see that screen there?
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So in the mark scheme, 24 marks you can get for your ideas and the content, and it's this sustained crafting here, conscious crafting of linguistic devices. If we go down into level 3, so between 15 and 18 marks, it talks about selecting vocabulary and phrasing for effect. And it's really that I want you to be thinking about when you're writing your sentences, and that, as I said to you the other day, that whatever sentence you include or whatever um, word you might use in lesson or in your writing, you're able to justify why you chose that word and not any other word. And like, the thing I've got on the left hand side, this sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. 5 word sentences are fine, but several together become monotonous. Listen to what is happening. The writing is getting boring. The sound of it drones. It's like a stuck record. The ear demands some variety. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of those sentences. They're all grammatically correct, but the rhythm of them doesn't make it feel like it flows. Now, it might be that's what you want to achieve in your writing, but perhaps if you look, I won't read the second one, but the third one, the last one, when you've got, and sometimes, comma, when I am certain the reader is rested, I will engage him with a sentence of considerable length, a sentence that burns with energy and builds with all the impetus of a crescendo, the roll of the drums, the crash of the cymbals, sounds that say, listen to this, it is important. Now, the difference really between these, they're both grammatically correct, and they've both got vocabulary that's appropriate, but the way those sentences have been crafted have very different effects. And it's that sort of stuff that I want you to be thinking about when you're planning. So when you're planning your question 5, basically I want you to be thinking about some of the things I'm going to talk to you today. And today's going to be exclusively about sentence variety. So some things that you could consider if you're really struggling in your exam, literally do the task that's on this screen here. So you might select 3 numbers between, say, 2 and 6, and then 3 numbers between 10 and 15. So you might end up with, say, I don't know, 5, 12, 3, 11, 2, 10. So you might have, say, a series of numbers, and then what you might find afterwards, what you could do is then craft your sentences so they all have fairly similar, or they all correspond to the letters you've chosen. So you might have then a 10 word sentence that's then followed by, say, a 15 word sentence, which is then followed by a 7 and a 3 and a 5 and a 6. Now, that would be a good starting point to include within your writing, because one of the descriptors in the mark scheme, if I just pull it up for a second, if we go towards the bottom, it is about variety of sentences. Now I'll just see if I can locate where it is. For the 16 marks, a full range of appropriate sentence forms. So you're talking about long and short sentences. So that might be a good place for you to start thinking about, right, to make sure that I'm varying the length of my sentences. You could do something like this. Now, to be mindful that you need to be able to justify why you chose certain sentences. The higher band probably won't get there just by doing this task here. But it's a good place to start if you're struggling, or at least to make sure that you've included at least a variety of sentences. In particular, I'd say, like, even having a 1 word sentence here, or a very short sentence, you know, it's often if you've got a real sort of phrase or a real point that you want to make, having 1 word or a few word sentences will really, really help kind of make it quite impactful. But then equally, sort of combining that with longer sentences, can help you sort of bring in a bit more description and maybe slow the pace of your piece of writing down. Something else that you could consider is kind of, if you have a look at this here, so we'll change the word Kevin to Adam here, but say think about how like the length of the sentences really changed the kind of mood within it. So you got the English lesson seemed to Kevin to be dragging on forever as Mr. Mallon's voice droned on in its weary, low monotone voice about the apparently fascinating poetry of some long dead writer who seemed to Adam at least to be unhealthily and unnaturally interested in scenes of empty countryside and quiet decay. Now, would you say that's a really long sentence, Ad?
It's long, but it like flows.
It does, yeah, you're absolutely right. What do you think in this occasion? Like I've used a really long sentence to describe this English lesson.
I don't
You're
get
not
it.
sure? Okay. Well, if you think about like what the purpose of this lesson, this sentence is, it's to sort of talk about how like the lesson's dragging on, and how like the voice is dragging on, it's droning, and it's a bit possibly a bit boring. And often like a really long sentence, particularly one that's really long like this. I don't know how many numbers there are in this sentence, but it really kind of it's the purpose of it is to sort of replicate how bored in this case Kevin is feeling in the lesson. So a long sentence might link to the mood or the theme of maybe like the character or the thing that you're describing. Compare it to say something like this: breathe, breathe, I said. Come on. Nothing. No response. Not one sign of life. One little breath. Do it. Do it for me. Stay here with me, please. How are these two sentences, would you say, different in terms of their tone, Ad?
Like the first one's just like uh, really like long, and the other one's just like short, snappy,
Yeah.
and
Uh, Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's short, it's snappy, it's to the point. There's very limited in this one in green. There's very limited descriptive language, but this would be a nice sort of paragraph to include. You know that actually it gives us a real sort of sense of maybe urgency that's behind it. Particularly because for whatever reason somebody needs to breathe. Suggestion that they're running out of time. That kind of idea. So this sentence as well. The waves crashed. The moon shone brightly. All else was silent on the deserted beach. From the distance came the sound of thunder. So kind of longer sentences here than the one in green, but shorter than the ones at the top. And so all the point I'm trying to make is that they each one of these sentences, despite what they're talking about, have kind of a different mood, a different tone within it. And so that's the kind of thing I want you to be able to justify is maybe I'm aiming, you might say in your plan, I'm aiming for this particular mood in my paragraph. Therefore, I'm going to use this type of sentence. I'm going to use really long sentences or really short sentences as well. Something else that you could consider, I'm going to bypass this one because I don't want to talk about it today, is these one here, like different sentence choices. And I don't know if you've got a pen in front of you, Adam. Have you got some notes that you can make based on what I'm saying today?
I'll go get my bag down from
Okay.
downstairs.
All right. I'll give you a few seconds then.
I'm back.
Sorry, Adam, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So these sentences here, the reason why I wanted you to make some notes is all the sentence types on the left hand side might be things that you can consider and include in your writing, and it you don't have to worry about the technical terms, particularly for question 5. But it might be in your plan. You might remember some of these sentence starters or sentence types as a way of writing creatively and a bit more originally. So you've got it isn't, and it is sentences, triple adjective colon sentences, so, simile start, adverb comma sentences, and verb opening. And part of the way they've been entitled is to help you kind of almost remember what you've got to include in these sorts of sentences. So, for example, let's see here. Let me just take my pen off for a second. So, if you have a look at these examples on the board here on the PowerPoint, you've got it isn't and it is sentences. So, for example, it isn't the fact that it is snowing. It is the fact that I'm going to be late for Christmas. So you're using kind of like the repetition of like it is or it isn't to help kind of build an argument up, and you could apply this to any kind of situation or any kind of topic you've got. So let's say, for example, poverty. It isn't the fact that people are poor, it is the fact that that people are dying on the streets. You wrote the other day something about homeless people, didn't you? So it isn't the fact that there's a large number of homeless people, it is the fact that they're not able to get the help that they need or something like that. The second one's a useful one, a really useful one, if nothing else, because it encourages you and forces you to use a colon. And literally all this is a triple adjective, 3 adjective colon. So it reminds you basically what exactly you need to start your sentence with. So one adjective, a second adjective, a third adjective, so the triple, followed by a colon, and then the next of your sentence. So basically here, the snow caught me off guard is linking back to the description here. So white, cold, and bracing. The snow caught me off guard. So you could think of, say, 3 adjectives to describe, say, homeless people, for example. Starving. I'm trying to think of other adjectives you could use. Starving, lonely, cold. The homeless need our support. And as I say, it's a really useful one because to put a colon in there will help you move up the mark scheme. And if you have a look back onto the mark scheme that I showed you a second ago, to get to those higher marks up here, a range of punctuation is used, or a wide range of punctuation is used. Just by the simple fact that you put a colon in there might give you, or might allow the examiner to find a few extra marks for you to use. So I would really recommend, of all of these, perhaps this one's a really good one to include. Next one, so sentences. The snow was so heavy, so overpowering, I needed all my strength to get through it. You could easily turn, whatever subject matter you've got into kind of a so sentence, and all it does is it intensifies whatever you're describing. The homeless are so lonely, so in need of our support. We need to do all that we can to help them out. So again, you don't have to, it's not the technical name, but from a so sentence, it might be a really nice way to kind of help kind of get your kind of almost point, your aggression or your assertive feelings across in your writing. You could start a sentence with a simile. Snow fell like bricks. The homeless are like, leaves on the ground, that kind of stuff. So you can start your sentences with a simile, and it's another good way to start your sentences. Start your sentence with an adverb. In this case, rapidly falling. The snow pushed my car down. Slowly, the number of homeless people are getting the support they need, or something like that. But a good way to remember what an adverb is it usually ends with an ly. So sometimes I might describe this as an ly sentence. But notice it's an adverb, comma. So you might have the adverb followed by a comma, and then your sentence normally here. So slowly, comma, the homeless are getting the support they need, or something. So again, like I said with this triple adjective colon example, using a comma, which is quite a difficult piece of punctuation to use, believe it or not, is a good way of getting 2 accurate pieces of difficult punctuation used accurately at the same time. Another example could be verb opening. So similar to the adverb, comma, it's a verb this time. Calling out. My voice travelled no further than my own cold lips. So you could start with literally a verb. You know, running away. The number of homeless people in the world is increasing. That kind of stuff. And again, you've got the use of the comma here, and used accurately, that will certainly help and boost your marks as well. So, Adam, does that all make sense in terms of these example sentences?
Sorry, so can you repeat that, please?
I was just asking if what I've just said made sense in terms of how you might do your sentence. Yeah. So you know, when you do your planning, it might be that you decide, right, in my first paragraph, I'm going to use an it isn't and it is sentence, and I'm going to use a so-so sentence. And in my second paragraph, I'm going to use triple adjective colon sentence as an adverb. So you start to plan specifically the lessons. The sentences that you are going to use in your paragraph and your writing. Okay. Have you had a chance to write those down?
Yeah, I've wrote it all down.
Yeah. Okay. I've got some other ones coming up in a second. So these ones here. So more sentences. The more he thought about his home, the more he noticed how much he missed it, the more he appreciated getting back today. Or, for example, the more we do to solve climate change, the more we will protect our planet, and the more we will pass on this earth to the next generation. So do you see how, literally just by that repetition of the word more, we're given, in a sense, kind of three mini sentences that kind of build up to kind of our points. So a bit like the so-so sentence, really. You know, the use of more would be a really effective way of writing and being able to present your point of view. You could also include something that starts with a distance. So it could be closer, further, nearer, words like that. And then again, followed by the more. So here, the closer we get to solving the homeless crisis, the more we can feel as if we're making a difference. Or the further we are from finding a cure for COVID, the more people will die and suffer. So again, you're using distance combined with the word more to help kind of develop your points as well. It's a really nice sort of sentence here that you're using vocabulary to again to get your points of view and your assertiveness across as well. Next one could be a not only but also. Not only was he confident he knew the play, but also he knew that he would deliver it well. So again, starting your sentence with not only, following it up with but also, combining these together in your sentences will help as well. And the final one that I want to just talk to you about today is when you develop your idea sentences. So for example, if you take the issue with poverty is that it's frustrating and troubling. Now often we might put a full stop after the word troubling here. But actually, if you put a semicolon, what that semicolon means is you are then going to expand on your previous sentence, and you're then also going to develop your previous sentence. So this issue with poverty, the issue with poverty is that it's frustrating and troubling. Frustrating because we know we can solve the issue. So you're repeating the word frustrating here because we can solve the issue, and troubling because it's something no one wants to tackle. So you're using kind of a repeated idea within your sentences to help kind of again develop what you're trying to say. And again, the advantage with using a sentence like this is you're using a semicolon. And like I said before, that means you're using not only a range of sentences, but you're also using a range of punctuation too, which will help you boost up your mark scheme. Now, it's not to say that you have to use colons or semicolons or any of that sort of stuff in your writing, but if you want to make sure that you're giving your examiner as much opportunity to find marks for you to have as you possibly can. All right. Now, to put that into kind of some kind of practice. Oh yeah, something else to think about as well. We've talked a little bit about when we did poetry about syllables, and if you remember, monosyllabic and polysyllabic. So what mono means one, and poly means many. So what you've got is kind of it gives you an opportunity to think about the rhythm of your sentences too. And there's some examples would be, let me get to the one I want you to talk about. All of these examples here, all of this is, I think, pretty much in monosyllabic words. Small words can be crisp, but brief, terse, go to the point, just like a knife. They have a charm all their own. They dance, twist, turn. Now, it might be in your plan, you want in your first paragraph to only use, say, monosyllabic words. Or maybe you want every single sentence starter or every single paragraph that begins with, you want to make sure that you start with a monosyllabic word, one syllable sentence. Okay. Now, some people might assume that it's an easy choice, monosyllabic words, but actually, the piece of writing in green here, that's not an easy or a simple piece of writing. It's just because they're using monosyllabic words, it actually makes it kind of it's actually really well crafted. Some of the words that are used here, and they're all just using that kind of rhythm and ideas there. So to put that into practice, I've just thought about kind of a topic that's obviously in the news right now, so COVID, and I've thought about like some of these sentences that I might want to include in a piece of writing. And you could think of any topic that you want to. In the past couple of years, students have had to write about celebrities. They've had to write about I think weather, bicycles, things like that have come up. Schools, education, that kind of stuff. So there might be something linked to a global pandemic, the example might give us. But take this, what I've got in front of you here. So it isn't the fact that COVID is causing such devastation. It is the fact that it impacts every moment of our lives. Distress, despair, and death all seem to come with this terrible disease. The more it remains with us, the more havoc it will unleash, the more our country will never be the same again. Sadly, with the rise of this pandemic, so much has changed. So much will never be the same again. What do we do? What can we do? What should we do? The further away a vaccine is, the more lives will be lost. A concerning and terrible fact. Concerning because there is no end in sight, and terrible because the vulnerable people in our society will be at most risk. So, Adam, tell me what you can see. What type of sentences can you see in that short paragraph there?
It started off with it isn't, I mean, it is.
Yep.
I mean, the distance, the more.
Yeah. So this one, where's that one? So you got then the more. You talk about this one here, the one that more it remains with us.
The further away the vaccine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you've got the distance sentence here, and then the more lives. So absolutely. So those things there. Yep. What else can you see?
And the more sentence.
More sentence. Yep. What else?
Could a rhetorical question be one?
Yeah, definitely. And notice I've put the 3 rhetorical questions, and they've all been phrased in the same way, with the exception of the modal verb. What do we do? What can we do? What should we do? So that repetition of those rhetorical questions would be quite an effective way of writing. So yeah, and notice, think about the syllables in that sentence. What, one, do, one, we, one, do. Those are all monosyllabic sentences. What can we do? What should we do? They're all monosyllabic sentences. What else can you see?
Repeat and developed ideas.
Yep. So where's that one?
Concerning and terrible fact.
Absolutely.
Concerning.
Yep.
Because all of that.
Yep.
And
what about this one here? The one sadly.
Is that a verb? No, that's not a verb, is it? A triple? No, I don't know, sir.
It's an ly word, and usually ly words are adverbs. So it's an adverb comma sentence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I've realised I made a slight mistake. I was aiming for this sentence here: distress, despair, and death, to be like a triple adjective colon. But even as a triplet, a triple adjective or a triple description, that this still works as well. And notice I've deliberately chosen the letter D to start those 3 words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you see how, literally what I was doing when I wrote this is I was like, right, I'm going to start my sentence with it isn't and it isn't sentence, right? And then I'm going to move on to this type of sentence. And now I'm going to include this type of sentence. And it's almost like this, there's nothing in this paragraph there's no vocabulary that I think is anywhere beyond what, Adam, is there?
Nah, it's all basic, just...
Yeah. It's quite simple, but it's all effective, isn't it? And you get my point, the point I'm trying to make. You understand kind of how that's all being put together, don't you? So all my point is, when you come to your mock exam, have these phrases in front of you in your head, okay? And to start thinking immediately, right, I'm going to include this type of sentence, this type of sentence. And if nothing else, what you'll achieve by just putting in a variety of these sentences is you'll achieve the mark scheme's criteria, which is a full range of sentence forms, hopefully for effect. Okay. And actually, one thing to note, if you notice here, it talks about sentence forms in the technical accuracy. So you get up to 16 marks for your sentence forms. It also starts to talk about sentences somewhere in here, I think, or at least the way in which you can structure sentences somewhere. Well, if it's not there, maybe I'm wrong on that. But if nothing else, it also links to this vocabulary and crafting. Where is it? I've lost it here. This crafting of linguistic devices, which is exactly what you start to do. And as you get more used to these phrases or this sort of style of writing, you can start to be like, right, I'm not going to put, say, my adverb sentence here. I'm going to put it somewhere else. I'm going to begin my piece of writing with an adverb sentence, and maybe I'm going to save my it is sentences. I'm going to put that in the middle. Maybe I'm going to end my first paragraph with a series of rhetorical questions. So you can start to make some decisions rather than it just being a random kind of sequence of sentences. You can start to plan it a little bit more in a varied way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So something else just to bear in mind, and this might be something that you do in the kind of end part of the exam, is if you have time and you want to go and improve it, start to think about kind of literally the first words in your sentences. Okay. And what you're aiming for, what you want to see is variety. Now, obviously, with these what sentences, that's there deliberately, so I can justify why I put that. But what I would say is I've got two the sentences, so that's not so bad. I've only got one a sentence. I've got one sentence that starts with an adverb, one sentence that starts with an adjective, and I've got one sentence that starts with an it word. So I would say, I don't know about you, I'd say that's a fairly there's a variety in the way those sentences begin. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only time when there isn't a variety of the sentences is the what, but that's there for deliberate. I've done that deliberately because I wanted each sentence to kind of be similar to one another. Okay. So ultimately, what I'm going to leave you with in a second is that phrase right at the top. You can write less, so you don't have to write 6 sides. You can write about 2. And that's more or less what I would encourage you to do. But I want you to think about how you're going to craft, how you're going to use language and sentences in this case for effect. All right. So thinking about kind of moving forward, if you wanted to, this was on the exam a few years ago. So education is not just about which school you go to or what qualifications you gain. It is also about what you learn from your experiences outside of school. And the job here would be to write a speech, for your school or college's Leavers Day to explain what you think makes a good education. Now, there's nothing stopping you doing a piece of writing, whilst it's fresh in your head, if you wanted to right now, to use like a bit of time this afternoon, use some of these sentences that we've talked through today, write something that looks like this. If you want me to send you this as a screenshot to your email in a second, I'm happy to do that. And literally write your response or write your opening paragraph to this. Okay. So, do you have any questions about what I've spoken about today?
Not really, no.
Does it all make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, like I say, the thing that I want you to think more and more is when you're planning, I want you now to plan for your sentences. Plan for what specific sentences you're going to include in your writing. And if you can explain to me what sentences you're going to include and most importantly, why you're going to include them, your writing will be improved as a result. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stop the recording there.